Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show we have reports and tips for you from Jarrett McCarthy down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and then we talk ice fishing with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Mike Best. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
Finally hit the trails again with the Polaris Holiday Sales Event at Hayward Power Sports. We have remaining 2024 and 2025 Polaris snowmobiles offering up to $3,000 rebate or a 0% financing for up to 60 months or a 2-year limited warranty. We have a wide range of sleds from the economy price Polaris 550 Voyager LXT 2-Up to the unstoppable factory turbocharged Polaris 80 VR1 Boost. They'll go fast, so don't get left out in the cold. Hurry to Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray, bake down, draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu, and while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're recording this week down in Hayward Bait and Bottle, and Jared, as we're recording this, we're coming up to a big holiday, New Year holiday, and we had a major snowstorm. It all of a sudden just sprung up and dumped a bunch of snow out there.
Yeah, it just popped out of nowhere. A great way to bring in the new year by grabbing the shovel. So, yeah, got a lot of white stuff out there. Great for the snowmobilers, but might make ice travel a little tricky for the next week or so.
Well, hopefully it was pretty heavy snow. Hopefully it don't create a bunch of slush out there in places.
Yeah, we were lucky that we started with pretty much no snow out of the ice. So we'll see what happens out there.
You have pretty good ice conditions out there. We reported in the past that we had, 4, 5, 6 inches of ice, but all of a sudden now it developed a lot more ice, I think.
Yeah, it really did. Before the snow came through, we had, 10 to 12 inches of really good ice on most of the lakes around here. And, with that little bit of warm that we had going into the snowfall, we were down to just about no snow out of the ice. So hopefully those ice conditions will get a little bit better, especially with the cold that we've got in front of us.
What are you hearing as far as the fishing? I know I talked to a couple of guides that say it's been a little bit on the slow side for some species.
For some of the pictures that I've seen coming in, sounds like the pike fishing's been really good, so has the pan fishing. Walley's been a little bit slow, but it seems like they're starting to pick up out there.
And I wonder if that wasn't the fact that we had a really warm fall and went into the winter with a lot of food out there for them.
Yeah, it could be, and those fish are finally just starting to come around and go for what the anglers are starting to provide for them. But, yeah, we'll see as the winter goes on.
Anybody wants to go after walleyes, mostly a tip-up bite, or we're going to start seeing some jig bite now?
Mostly a tip-up bite so far, and I expect that now that those fish are going to start moving out of those shallower waters, now that we got some decent ice, now that we got some snow cover out there, a lot of those shallow weeds will start dying off. I suspect the jig bite will start to get prevalent out there.
And pike fishing, that's mostly tip up, I know. And sucker minnows are using bigger suckers. What?
Suckers, shiners, some guys are running dead baits out there, but yeah, pike's been good on tip ups out there.
And we talk panfish. I know that's one of the species that you go after the most. What's going on there?
A lot of crappies are out in the basins right now. They're roaming that 20 to 40-foot basins out there. Starting to suspend, seeing some fish, up off bottom. Bluegills are still holding into some of those shallower weeds. I suspect that they'll start to join some of those crappies out in the basin here pretty quick. But yeah, bite's been good.
I know that's what you go after a lot. I'm going to hit you up for a couple of can't-miss tips here. How about bluegills? What if you had to tell people one thing for this going to help them catch more bluegills?
So if you're looking for size of bluegills, and we talk about this all the time, a lot of people, they come in, they want to go grab the tiniest little tungsten jigs, those little, 3-4 millimeter tungsten jigs, those tiny little ones. They like to throw a spike or a little waxy on there, and they start with that right away, and that's great, but you're going to catch all those little dinky 3 and 4 and 5-inch bluegills. If you want to go grab a big bluegill out there, start off with a spoon. And, you're looking at a little spoon, even if it's a 16th or a 32nd ounce spoon, it looks like a big presentation, but to one of those big 8.5, 9-inch bluegills out there, that is what they are looking for. That is also what will keep a lot of those little tiny bluegills away from your presentation and let those bigger bluegills come in. A spoon's got a lot of flash in it. A lot of guys are already using spoons for crappies, and, they're kind of bewildered when they get one of those big bluegills that come in, but those big bluegills are looking for bigger baits too.
Yeah, and I found load that treble hook up with waxies too.
Yeah, absolutely. Give them a little scent, give them a little bit of extra, commitment there.
And for crappies, what's a good tip there? I got a couple for them too.
Oh, a good tip for crappies this time of year. It's kind of looking at your schools when you go out there and you start fishing. You get out there and you're fishing, let's say, a 30-foot basin, and you're marking fish all the way from, let's say, 10 feet down all the way to 25 feet down. A lot of those fish that you're going to be looking for that will either A, had the feed bag on, are ready to roll, and B, are going to be those fish that are safer to catch, are going to be those ones that are higher in the water column. Usually a lot of those fish that are a little bit more lethargic, they kind of sit towards the bottom. Those ones that are riding high, those are the ones that you should really start to target and work your way from the top all the way down, because crappies, they feed up anyway, so they're always looking up, so it would make sense to start above the school as opposed to all the way on the bottom underneath them.
How about if you're on a lake that's maybe 20 to 25 feet deep over a mud basin, and you get out there and you're not seeing any fish at all? No matter where you look, it's just you can't see fish.
So a couple different things. I do a little trick with a Vexilar. So if you've got a live scope out there, that's fantastic. You're going to find them faster than most people would. B, if you're still walking around with a Vexilar out there, drill a couple of holes, and what you can do with that deucer is you can start swinging it underneath the hole, and what will happen is that deucer will go out and about to each which way direction, and you'll be able to kind of look around the hole and see if there's any fish nearby. If you're not seeing anything out there, a lot of those fish could be hugging the bottom really, really tight. You might need to get down there and start coaxing some of these fish off bottoms. The other option is just keep moving until you find fish. Those fish are there somewhere. But those crappies, they're nomads, so they are constantly on the move.
An interesting thing I found too, and I know some friends of mine in Minnesota do this quite often, is take a pretty good sized spoon or a jig and wrap, let it hit bottom a bunch of times, stir up some silt and stuff off the bottom, bang, bang, bang on the bottom, and then pull it up 3-4 feet up and see what comes off the bottom, because the fish are on the bottom, tight to the bottom, you can't see them on your sonar.
Yep, and likewise with crappies and bluegills, that's a great option to go out and do for perch, especially when we get into that late ice, when those fish get up in the shallow, muddy stuff when they're getting ready to spawn. Making a big commotion on the bottom with a heavier spoon, those can really draw that fish in.
Spoons are probably not used enough. I mean, they were a hot item there for quite a while, a few years back, and then, jig and spoons and stuff, and then they kind of faded away, and now they're coming back again, it seems like.
Yeah, there's a lot of items here, a lot of fishing baits out there that kind of go through cycles. Jig and wraps are a great option for baits. Rip and wraps are great options for baits. We think ice fishing all the time, and we think, really small, subtle presentations where realistically you get a good day with a good barometer out there. These fish could be eating baits just like they would in the summertime out there. So, never be afraid to go big. You can always work your way smaller.
Well, a lot of times, too, I think that some of the smaller fish are up higher in the water and the bigger fish are below them. And you can't if you got a small bait, you can't get it through them small fish to get to the bigger fish. By upscaling the bait, you can get it down there in front of the bigger fish sometimes.
Absolutely. It drops through those smaller fish a lot faster, and it, excludes a lot of those smaller fish. So, yeah, good option.
You heard anything from up on the big lake at all, up there, Lake Superior?
I had one of the guys in here this morning that fishes it all the time, and, he said he just wasn't quite comfortable after all the snow going out there, and, we've had some people getting out there, but with this snow and with the crazy wind that we've had, I don't hear a lot of people going nuts out there just yet.
And lastly, down here at the shop, you guys are geared up. You got everything they need, and you're kind of reorganizing a bunch of stuff this winter. Big project.
Yeah, big project for this spring. We got a lot of moving parts in here, but, we've got everything that you might need for the winter, and if we don't have it, we'll order it for you.
Yeah, and that's start planning for next spring, because that's it. The winter's actually pretty short after you get past the first of the year.
It really is. We're going to blink, and we're going to be in a boat again.
Jared, I want to thank you greatly for taking the time with us here.
Thanks for having me again, John.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll be talking ice fishing with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Mike Best. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hunters and anglers, Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop in Hayward. They have a huge selection of ice fishing gear, including portable shelters, power augers, electronics, beaver dam tip-ups, ice rods, and just about anything you'll need for ice fishing. They also have archery supplies, bows, crossbows, muzzle loaders, ammo, and much more to help you enjoy the outdoors. While you're there, check out the bottle shop for a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop. There's no time like the present to explore Hayward, Wisconsin, one of the Midwest's most popular vacation destinations. With crystal clear lakes for water sports and fishing, miles of trails for riding snowmobiles, ATVs, cross-country skiing, hiking, and mountain biking, this area is buzzing with activity year-round. Combined with charming local shops and a variety of Northwoods dining options, Hayward is certain to offer both adventure and relaxation for everyone. Plan your trip today and find everything you need on the Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce website. From events and attractions to local dining, shopping, and lodging, visit haywardareachamber.com and start your next adventure now.
Hayward Power Sports asks, can you hear the cool, crisp air calling your name? Make sure you have the perfect companion, a new Can-Am side-by-side or ATV from Hayward Power Sports. We still have a solid selection of new 2025s with rebates up to $4,000 or 0% financing for 36 months. Looking for Can-Am dominance at a value price? Check out a 2025 Can-Am Defender DPS HD7. With a $1,000 rebate, it's priced at just $13,899. As a matter of fact, all remaining 2025 Can-Am Defender HD7s offer a $1,000 rebate, while the HD9s and HD10s have $2,000 rebates. Or be the first to have the latest and greatest Defender yet. The new for 2026 Can-Am Defender Limited HD11 with a dominating 95 horsepower and an awesome 10.25-inch touchscreen with GPS navigation. Answer the call with the new Can-Am from Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Certain restrictions apply. Subject to credit approval. See your dealer for details.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, one of the guides I get on here from time to time is Hayward Area Fishing Guide Mike Best. I had a chance to talk to him the other night on the phone about the ice fishing and a lot more. Mike, it looks like shaping up for a good ice fishing season, but the start of it was not good. We had not a lot of ice to start with, and on top of that, the fish didn't seem to want to cooperate much from what I'm getting back on reports.
Yeah, I would agree with you, John. It was definitely one of the slowest starts that I've seen in a lot of years. We had good ice, early on, and we were hitting a lot of the lakes we normally do, but we just weren't catching many fish.
We had good ice on some lakes, the big clear lakes especially, but some of the smaller lakes, it didn't seem to develop ice as fast, it seemed like. Yeah,
you're right. It definitely was like some lakes I thought would definitely have really good ice. We went there, we couldn't get to the spots that we wanted to fish. And then some of the other lakes that we normally don't have good ice till later had good ice this year. So, yeah, definitely a different year.
You think that maybe, the last summer and last fall, the fall dragged on, and it seemed like the fishing was off last summer even somewhat, and I think it was probably due to the fact there was a lot of food or forage out there for fish. Coming into the winter with a lot of forage, if we were carrying a lot of stuff for the fish to eat out there, do you think that's what's affected the fishing early?
Yeah, a lot of different factors. What I did find is that the places that I did find fish, is in shallow weeds, like 3-4 feet of water. And normally by the time we're getting out there with this much ice, we're fishing basins. And there's just no fish in the basins right now at all. And and I agree. I think with what you're saying with all that bait, and there was enough green vegetation and all those minnows and stuff were in that vegetation, and the fish just stayed in there. And there wasn't a lot of snow on the ice, and it was clear, so that's where everything was at. So we're chasing fish that we normally would catch them out in the basins, and they just weren't there yet.
Well, Mike, do you think that's going to change as we get farther into the winter here? Because typically when you get into midwinter, it would be the lowest amount of food out there forage. They've eaten everything down, and the insect hatches have slowed down, even though there are some hatches and some larvae out there swimming around all winter long. That stuff really seems to thin down, and I think that maybe makes the fish have to go a little bit more active to hunt to find something.
Yeah, that's always a factor. Once the fish go to the basins, they're out in that mud, and then, your evening bites, that last hour and a half when the bugs start to hatch out of that mud, and then the crappies and the bluegills and perch get a lot more active. It's just easier to catch them.
A lot of people normally just think it's a minnow type diet, but a lot of these fish are eating, and there's a lot of insect larvae that swim around and come out of that mud all winter long.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the mud basins for crappies and bluegills and panfish is definitely the way to go. What we're finding is, once you get into your heart of your winter, I think it's more snow. Once you get, 6 and 8 inches of snow on the ice, there's not as much sun shining through. They'll move out into those basins, that 15 to 30 feet of water, and they'll hang out there till, end of February, and then they'll start moving back in shallow into those weed beds again.
Well, if you had to give people one good tip on finding crappies and bluegills and catching them in the wintertime, what would that be? The big thing is look for those mud basins. Look to, if you're going to pick any lake that you're going to go to, start in that, 20 to 25 feet of water in the mud, and just kind of cut holes. And if you got forward facing sonar, just keep looking till you find a school of them. And if they don't bite, it's one of those things. It can be just a certain window during the day or closer to evening. I always like to go early in the morning or that last hour before dark. Do you find that sometimes the fish, a lot of people like to think that you want to be up higher up off the bottom, and for the crappies, a lot of times maybe halfway down in the water column, but do you find that there's a lot of times where you got to be actually banging the bottom down there with your jig and your bait to catch fish?
So, yeah, that's a good question, John. I mean, I know Nelson Lake, I fish quite a bit. And, that's the average depth on Nelson is 10, 15 feet.
Right.
And that one, you drop down and you hit the mud and you just keep banging it on the bottom. Eventually you'll see crappies and bluegills show up, and you'll catch them, a couple, maybe a foot off the bottom. But then other lakes, your deeper lakes, you look at like Smith Lake and like La Coudray and Grindstone. When they're out suspended in that deep water, you just, you want to keep your baits above the fish. You'd be halfway down and stay, 6 inches to a foot above them, and let them chase your bait to go hit it.
You think live bait is a better option in the wintertime versus plastics, or is it both can be real effective?
They both can be effective. Once everything moves out into that basin and it's a mud bite, I like to use plastics, and a lot of times I'll use a lot of different plastics until I find something that they like. And I'll always, if they're real finicky, I'll tip it with a spike or a waxy. But minnows out in, basin is not necessarily a good way to catch them, just because they're not eating minnows, they're eating bugs.
Yeah, I find a lot of times that things like little gulp baits, gulp minnows and stuff, are more productive than real minnows are out there. So you just have to kind of experiment.
Right. And that's a good point. If you see, if you're in a school of fish and they won't bite, I always have 4 different rods with 4 different plastics rigged up. And I'll try different things, and it's crazy how you'll sit there and you won't catch anything. All of a sudden you'll throw something down there and you'll catch 3 or 4 in a row on it. And then they'll stop, and then you'll switch a bit, and then you'll get another couple. So it definitely helps to change your plastics.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with fishing guide Mike Best. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore-sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Care for the animals with help from Hayward Feed and Seed. They offer deer corn, mineral blocks, and their famous Big Buck blend. They can also satisfy the hunger of the other animals in your life with a massive variety of dog and cat foods, along with other pet foods and large animal feeds. Plus, they have an awesome assortment of cat and dog toys, along with heated water bowls and plenty of warm, cozy bedding for all the animals in your life. Open at 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday. See the experts at Hayward Feed and Seed. Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes. Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with fishing guide Mike Best. Are you usually using just a small teardrop type jig or a tungsten jig, or do you kind of go sometimes to jigging spoons or jigging wrap type baits?
For jigs, I've gone 100% tungsten. I usually don't use anything but a tungsten bait. But I do like spoons. I use a lot of different spoons. The one thing that I do, and it's actually kind of funny, a lot of people, they question my sanity with it, but so when I cut a hole, I never scoop the hole when I'm fishing panfish. And my theory on that is I don't like that sun shining down that hole, and especially in clear water lakes. So I like tungsten and heavier spoons so that when I cut my hole and I leave that slush in there, that you can push that jig through there. And I have proven lots of times that those holes that don't have slush in it will work better than the holes that are scooped out clean.
Yeah, I know some guys that actually go to the smaller 6-inch holes for the panfish versus drilling 8 and 10-inch holes because they believe also that light penetration is kind of a negative factor down there.
And that's exactly right. I use nothing but 6-inch holes for panfish, and I was actually in you watch these shows out that they're doing out in North Dakota and South Dakota and even Minnesota. Right now, when they got the clear ice, they're saying they're catching the fish on areas that have cover. And what they mean by that is like there's a chunk of ice that maybe came up in a bunch of snow, maybe 100 yards of snow by 50 yards wide, and then the rest is clear ice. They're finding those fish on that snow cover. The other thing we're finding with the live scope now, especially with this early ice, you'll cut a hole and you'll find just a massive school of fish. And then you'll cut on top of them and they're gone. And you spend all day chasing fish around and never actually land on them. So you're better off to kind of set your live scope up and just cut a bunch of holes, maybe 25, 30 holes. Wait about 20 minutes and then start scoping where them fish wait for them to come back into that area and to go where them holes are that you cut, and then go over the top of them and fish them.
I've seen that. I mean, hey, go out there and drill a hole 60 feet out there. There's a big school of crappies, and you watch them step out there. They get out and they drill a hole. You can see the auger go through the ice on the live scope, and all of a sudden the fish just vanish. They're gone. They had a commotion over the top of them.
Yep, and that's an early ice trait. We're seeing that now with a little bit of ice and no snow cover.
You know, the other species of fish that now, people go after in the wintertime is perch. And, there again, you're looking at the mud basins.
Yeah, and the perch are in a lot of the spots that will end up catching them in March and April. But the problem is they're just so moody and they move so much. And it's just hard to get on them where you can just catch lots of them. You'll catch one here, one there, but right now they are tough to catch just because when you cut on them, they're just always moving.
And the thing that I always tell people if they're trying to find perch, and sometimes it even works for crappies and bluegills, is that you get in that 18, 20-foot range and you're out there on the mud bottom and take a jigging spoon and drop it down there and bang it on the bottom a few times. If you drill your hole and you don't see any fish, or you don't see anything down there but the bottom, drop that spoon down there and bang it on the bottom a few times and bring it up. And all of a sudden, sometimes you'll just start to see fish coming out of that mud or coming off that mud, because your depth finder does not show you the stuff that's tight to the bottom, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, even your live scope and your Vexilars. Like this morning, I was guiding a group when I put the Vexilar down, and you're like, it doesn't look like there's much there. You put your bait down, and all of a sudden, they just slowly creep out of the, off the bottom, and the Vexilar is not seeing them until they're, like 6 inches off bottom.
I think that, you can kind of figure that out by dropping your jig down and then see at what point it disappears and then see how much farther down it goes. But usually it'll go down a few inches anyhow, and those fish can lay in that. And I don't know if it's because the irregularities of the bottom. I think that's what it is. You're reading the bottom, the highest point on the bottom on your sonar, and the lower point where the fish are laying, you're not seeing it. Because if you get out on a real hard sand, flat bottom, you can actually see the bumps on the bottom where the fish are. But sometimes it's really hard to see the fish unless they come up off that bottom.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that. And you'll have, you're fishing little weed, but there's sand grass, there'll be, 4 to 6 inches of little weeds on the bottom. And it's a straight line. So your Vexilar picks up that line. But there's still another 6 inches below it that there's fish that can be sitting. Yeah,
there's always going to be a few green weeds out there, depending on the lake. They don't all die, it seems like. But in the green weeds, sometimes they're the more productive areas.
Yeah, we actually, this morning guiding, we caught a fair amount of fish in green weeds. And that's, again, too, when you put your Vexilar down, it shows it's 6 feet of water, but it's really 10. And you got 4 feet of cabbage that you're fishing in. That's productive, but you really can't see very well in it with your sonar.
A lot of good tips there and information, Mike. I know you guide, but you also you run Grand Pines Resort too, I think.
Yeah, so I've got 10 motel units, 14 cabins at Grand Pines on Round Lake. Half of my cabins are on Little Round, the other half's on Big Round. We got great fishing for just about everything, panfish and game fish on both sides. And we've got myself and Noah Glitta guides out of there. You can find us at grandpines.com, or you can look up MikeBestGuiding.com or NoahGlittaGuiding.com.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you greatly for taking the time with us here.
Okay, thanks, John.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, you can always go to our website at wnoradio.com, and from there you can link through to our podcast. You can also find the show on Spotify and all major podcast channels. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com or the Hayward Area Chamber site at haywardareachamber.com. And lastly, if you'd like more information on hiring a fishing guide when you're up here in the Hayward area, check out our website at wnoradio.com. We've got links to just about all the different guides and a lot of information in there on guides. We're out of time for this week's show, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you. Thanks for listening.
Way up in the Northland where the recreation's great. So sit back, relax, kick off your shoes, sink in your easy chair. Come on along, listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications.